Alright, in this first example we're going to be looking at multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. This first one you have done many times before, but I just want to jog your memory. When you see something like this in front, what you need to do is you need to distribute. So I will take 5 times 3x squared and get 15x squared. 5 times negative 4x and get negative 20x. 5 times 8 and get 40. And then you're going to look to see if there's any like terms you combine. Anything can combine anything with the same base and the same exponent. I don't have any in this case. So this is what this would look like. Just a quick review. This has 3 terms to it. 15x squared, negative 20x, and 40. So it's a trinomial. And the biggest exponent I see is a 2. And so it has a degree of 2, which means it's a quadratic. Here it does get a little bit more complicated, but you're going to follow the same concept. So I will distribute this term times this term. When I take negative 3 times negative 2, I get 6. When I take y squared times y to the 5th, I would add the exponents, and that would become y to the 7th. Negative 3y squared times negative 4y squared. Negative 3 times negative 4 would be positive 12. Y squared times y squared would be y to the 4th, because I would add those exponents. Negative 3y squared times 9y would be negative 27. Y to the, be careful because there is a 1 right there. So I have y to the 2 plus 1, which would be y to the 3rd power. If I look for like terms to combine, meaning I have terms with the same base and the same exponent, I don't have any, so this is my answer. It does have 3 terms to it, so it is a trinomial. And it does not have a specific name because it doesn't have a degree of 0, 1, 2, or 3. The degree of this trinomial would be 7, and so that doesn't have a special name. Alright, and then just slightly more complicated, here we go. Negative 2m squared n times 6m squared n squared. So negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. M squared times m squared, I add those exponents and become m to the 4th. N times n squared, be careful, there's a 1 right there. So I have n to the 1 plus 2, which is n cubed. Okay, then I will take negative 2m squared n times 5mn. So negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. M squared times m to the 1st power is m to the 3rd power because I add the exponents. N to the 1 times n to the 1 is n squared. Negative 2m squared n times negative 4m. So negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. M squared times m is m to the 3rd when I add the exponents. Remember there's a 1 right there. And then I've got this n right here. Okay. Then I'm going to go negative 2m squared n times negative 3n. So negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. I've got an m squared there, and then I have n times n, which makes n to the 1 plus 1, or n squared. And then lastly, negative 2m squared n times 7p. So negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. I try to list these in alphabetical order, so I'm going to go MNP. So I have m squared NP. And it would look like that. Alright, now we're going to kind of combine distributing and combining some like terms. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to distribute this 3 through. So 3 times 2t squared is 6t squared. 3 times negative 4t is negative 12t. 3 times negative 15 is negative 45. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the next polynomial, and I'm going to take positive 6t and distribute that through. So 6t times 5t would be 30t squared, because you'll add the exponents and there's a 1 above each of those t's. And then 6t times 2 is 12t. And now you want to look for terms that you can combine. So you want to start with your highest exponents. And so my highest exponents are t squareds. I have 6 of those t squareds here and 30 of them here. which makes a total of 36 of those t squareds. Notice when you're adding and subtracting now, you do not add and subtract the exponents. You just leave them. And then I have negative 12t and positive 12t. And so those drop. And then I have negative 45 right here. So this is what this would look like. It has two terms to it, so because it has two terms, it's a binomial. And because it has a degree of 2, where the highest exponent is a 2, it would be called a quadratic. All right, this is pretty similar in here, except for, so we'll start right here. 2 times 3x squared is 6x squared. 2 times negative 3x is negative 6x. 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, really common mistake here now to the right part of it. Be careful because you are actually distributing a negative 5 through. So negative 5 times 3x is negative 15x. Negative 5 times negative 6 is 30. Okay, now go ahead and combine your like terms starting with the biggest exponent. So the biggest exponent is x squared, which is right here. I only have 6 of those. And then I have a negative 6x and a negative 15x. So that makes negative 21x. And then I have 14 here plus 30 here to make 44. And this would be your answer here. Again, it has 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. It has a degree of 2, or the highest degree exponent that I see is a 2, so it is a quadratic. All right, and one last one like this. So 4 times 3a cubed is 12a cubed. 4 times 5a is 20a. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. Be careful, you're distributing negative 6a through. So negative 6a times 3a squared. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. A times a squared is a cubed. Negative 6a times negative 8a. Negative 6 times negative 8 is 48. A times a is a squared. Negative 6a times 7 would be negative 42a. Okay? And then here, 5a times 2a. 5 times 2 is 10, and a times a is a squared. 5a times negative 6 would be negative 30a. And now at this point, you want to combine any like terms that you have, starting with the biggest exponents. So here I have 12a cubed and negative 18a cubed. So 12 and negative 18 makes negative 6a cubes. I have 48a squared and 10a squared, and that makes 58a squared. And then I have, let's see, 20 minus 42 is negative 22, minus 30 is negative 52 of the a's, and then I've got the negative 32 right here. This would be a cubic equation, or expression, because it's got a degree of 3. It's simply called a polynomial. If it's more than 3 terms, we typically call it a polynomial. It's got 4 terms, so it's a polynomial, but it's a cubic polynomial because it has a degree of 3.